I can see everybody here are just friends of mine, so that makes it even easier. Anyway, I'm Simon Gatto. I think everybody here, most of you might know me. I'm the COO for Comalatech. And actually today we're going to be announcing lots of announcements this week. One of the first new products that we've released for quite a while. And the product's called Pepper. So we're going to get into why in a minute. But yeah, so we're actually just bringing out this announcement to this Team 22 event. The product's actually going to be launched, the beta, in about 4 to 6 weeks. So just really quickly, I would be remiss if I didn't mention it. Speaking of announcements, Comalatech has actually joined AppFire. So for anyone who didn't hear it already, congratulations. I think it's going to be pretty awesome. Obviously, AppFire has a deep portfolio of apps. I think Comalatech will really be able to enhance that, and it'll allow us to extend our solutions as well. So what we're actually talking about today is our new app called Pepper. Now, if you're wondering what Pepper stands for, I'm going to be honest, I had to ask our marketing guys just before this meeting to remind me, but it's publish, engage, prepare, and report. So if you guys are like us, most of you probably here that use Confluence for your documentation, so it's a great wiki. It's great for designing your documentation, doing all of your HR documents. Everything that you need to do in Confluence, you can do it there. We have lots of great tools that also help you manage your documents, so your page approvals and all the great things you do. So we produce tons and tons of pages, but our customers were regularly telling us, particularly in the last 2 years, like, well, this is great. I can do all my documentation, I can do all my approvals, all these great things, but then how do I actually get it to the people who need to read it? How do I make sure that all this time I've spent on documentation gets to the people who need it, and that they can also make sure that you know that they've actually read it? So this is actually where the idea for Pepper came in. When we came up with the idea, obviously, because we do publishing, we do a number of things, so this is where Pepper came from. So I'm going to give you guys, just to give you an idea, sort of an example, to sort of put it into perspective, what Pepper's all about. So just one really good example that we came up with, one of the first, and we have this as a use case with a lot of customers, are employee handbooks. So employee handbooks, I don't know that anybody does hard paper copies of employee handbooks anymore. Maybe they do, but even with digital handbooks, distribution can be difficult, even if you're using Confluence. So Confluence, great, you can put all this stuff in there, but you have to give your users access to a space, and everything's sitting in that space. You have to deal with specific permissions, giving them access to Confluence, so it gets really complicated. So this is where Pepper comes in. So two things, Pepper is going to be available for both cloud and data center, so obviously not server. Didn't really make a lot of sense. So it's going to be available for both cloud and data center. So there's two pieces to Pepper. So the first I'm going to talk about is the actual Confluence component. And the first sort of piece of the Pepper app, I call it adds a different dimension to how you're actually going to manage your pages in Confluence, because our marketing team doesn't use the word dimension, but I like it. So it actually allows you to take your regular sort of flat structure, you use your pages and your child pages, or your spaces and child spaces in Confluence. And what we've done is we've actually allowed you to create libraries of your pages. So you might have libraries of pages coming from multiple different spaces, because there's always like, well, I need this particular group of pages from this space, but I have some other pages in another space. Well, I don't want to give the users access to all of them. So you can create libraries of spaces. And once you've created your libraries, you can then easily organize those documents from your libraries into different collections. So just to give you an idea, for our HR handbook, we have a library of all of the HR related documents that we have. And then we've created specific collections of just the stuff that's appropriate. So for example, your Vancouver employee handbook, it's going to be different than your Bilbao employee handbook. So you can pick and choose for your collections out of your libraries which pages you want. So this is it kind of allows you to go beyond just that flat structure of your spaces. So that's the first thing that it allows you to do. And then once you've actually created it, you can actually set individual permissions for who can view the individual pages. So you don't have to give them access to an entire space when all they actually need is access to 4 different pages in that space. So you can set up individual access to each of the pages, so that new employee who just started, they're only going to have access, and they can do it directly from Confluence, to just the pages that have been put in that collection. So here's your employee handbook. That might be pages that were originally from different spaces, all put into a collection, but all they need is that handbook. So you give it to them this way. Sharing out, it's publishing it. essentially allows you to just, should we put it on this one? Yeah, so that's on this slide. So these ones can just be shared out directly from Confluence, and it will go directly into whatever collection you set it for. So the first thing you're going to do is set up your library, and then you're going to set up your collections, and then as you maintain those documents, as soon as you share it out, it's going to go into the collection that you've assigned it to. So they're always going to have the latest version of the page that's in that collection. So all that your page creators need to do is share it out and then publish it. So it's, some of you who know our publishing product, a little similar to that, but what we're doing now is we're actually pushing it into one of your collections. So they can see the collections, and then basically what we've done is there's a shortcut in Confluence, and if you want to see a little bit more how this works in action, we'll come by the booth, but it'll push it out and they can access it directly from their console, their homepage in Confluence. So they'll have their HR documents, their handbook. So this is kind of the organization from within Confluence. And again, your space admins will set up your libraries and your collections, and they can then assign the right permissions to the users for the collections. And so the pages themselves as they go out, obviously I mentioned adding them is very easy. You can use the publish option. You'll know whether they're published or not. They're only going to see the most recent version. So it's not just a copy paste of a page. It's actually going to take the most recent version, take a snapshot of that page as it is right now, and they're going to get that latest version of the page, including macros. So we're working on a number of different macros. So the page is basically a static version of it, and it's going to pull it across. So it's not going to update every time you update the page. People don't necessarily want that update being rolled out to your employees because there's a certain version of the handbook, for example. It will not get pushed out until you actually publish it. So you're going to get the latest snapshot of that page, just to give you an idea of some of the macros that we've been working on. These are some of the first ones we've been building in, and then obviously we're going to continue to add different macros. So essentially your page will look the same as it does in Confluence in the snapshot. So if you add cat pictures, there'll be cat pictures if you have specific formatting on the page. So we've started off with a few. And obviously, long-term plans, we of course want this to be able to integrate with things like some of our tools from our friends over at K15T, some of the other tools that we integrate with. So that's kind of the long-term goal that we have with that. The next piece, I mentioned there's two pieces to Pepper. So obviously most people now, or especially young people, they do a lot of their content reading on their phones. So we realized when we were building this, we're like, well, how are people consuming documents now? And if it's just I have to read this HR handbook, a lot of them are just doing it on the bus. They want to do it on their phone. So what we've done is we've actually created a mobile app for iOS. It's in Google Play. So people that are out, or if maybe they only access their Confluence through their phone, that's not uncommon. So people can actually get it through their phone. So they can go in, they'll be able to view that snapshot page and whatever collections that they've been given access to. So essentially they'll be able to get those documents, whatever the collection happens to be you've created, they're going to be able to get it on their phone. This macros are going to show up on their phone. So essentially it's going to look just like it does in Confluence. And then the second component to the application, and here we're just showing in the mobile app that we're building in as well. So it's really great that you can now push your documents out to all of your people. They can read it on their phones, but how do you know they've actually read it? We're adding in some of you might be aware of our confirmation tool that we have. So we have a small app that's basically just page confirmations. So we're building this in as well. So you might say, you know what, you need to read this HR handbook and actually notify us that you've actually read it. So we're building in the read confirmation tools as well. So people can actually say, hey, you've just started, you've got onboarding that you need to do. Read through these manuals and confirm that you've read it. You'll be able to do that from the app as well. You'll be able to do it from Confluence, but you'll be able to do it from the mobile app as well. So, I mean, obviously, you need a mobile app, right? Because those are more sexy. So when you got to do something new, we got to build a mobile app for it. So there's going to be a mobile app available. Just a couple of other ideas as well. QMS repositories you need to share with your auditors. You may not want to give them access necessarily to all of your spaces, so you might want to do your QMS stuff. Obviously, sharing documents with external designers and consultants. Again, these may not be people that have direct access to your Confluence. You want to be able to share them. You can do that as well. That's another use case. One that actually I like because my wife's a nurse. They get a lot of updated policies. How do you administer this type of drug? How do you do these types of injections constantly that are always coming out? They don't manage it very well at the hospital. they don't have a great tool for it. So this is another excellent use case. So hey, we've got a new policy on how you're going to administer this. You have to read this and confirm that you read it. So getting those documents out to the people, making sure that they read it through that read confirmation. Do it through your desktop. Do it through the mobile app. So I think it's going to be pretty cool. And it ties in obviously really nicely with the rest of our documentation suite. So you can still manage all your documents, you can do your approvals, but once you publish that page, you can push it out to that library or the collection that you've created. Cool. So we do actually have, I mentioned that it's coming out for beta in about 4 to 6 weeks, but we do have the product manager for Pepper with us here. His name's Jorge. Come by our booth. See us. We've actually got a demo of the app that you can take a look at. You can take a look at the mobile app if you want as well. And you can kind of get a sense of how it actually works when you're creating those libraries, creating those collections, and then viewing it on your phone. So that's all I have. I know it's late in the day, so. Applause now. Thank you. Is there any questions that I can answer, Tibor?
Attachments are also shared with the collection. So we have the collection, you assign privileged users to read the content, but what if the attachments are not embedded in the pages? Can they download the attachments separately?
Yeah, so we're actually, one of the things we've been working on is specific types of attachments, image files and things like that. So the idea is they would actually have any attachments that are part of it. Just a matter of how we're storing them. So I should mention, because it's in beta, one of the reasons why we're announcing it here is because we'd also like to talk to the partners and the people that would say, I could really use that, but would it do this? Because there's still features and stuff that we're building in. Some of them we already have. We already thought, yes, we need this, but we knew when we came to Team 22, people would be like, what about this attachment? What about my movie? Whatever, right? So, but attachments is definitely something that we're already looking to build in, but then we're also looking for ideas like, well, which macros do you guys use? Like things like that. So if you think about it, come and watch the demo and then you say, well, this would be cool. Will it be able to do these things? I mean, we're kind of at a great point where the majority of the foundation's already built. It happens to be built in Forge, if any of you are interested. So yeah, but the attachments was the first obvious one, right? It's like, well, we need to be able to have those because sometimes there's important stuff that people have to have in there. So,
okay, thank you.
Yep.
And does your app need a specific setup to overcome Confluence permissions?
No. So basically we've, no, they don't. We can explain how the permissions works. Yeah, exactly. Everybody gets no. So actually that was one of the big questions too, because obviously we wanted to make sure that it was easy. If you guys use workflows, so document management, so you know how the draft versus published and that works. So they're doing some stuff in the background to basically allow you to, some developer stuff, to be able to assign the permission. So we wanted to make sure it was the biggest thing was we wanted people to be able to access their documents without having to give them access to all the spaces, because this is the problem we have now with a lot of our customers. Like, well, I have these documents. Well, you just have to give them access to those spaces. Like, well, I don't want to give them access to all those spaces. Half of the stuff they don't need. So this is why we decided, okay, well, we'll pull it out. And so then the permissions are actually assigned based on the collection and the library level. So you can say, I only want them to have access to these. And so then it works with the Confluence permissions in the background.
Any other questions here?
No. Awesome. Oh.
Quick question.
Sure.
What is the login and authentication mechanism on the mobile app?
So we're actually using a token for it. So what you'll be able to do when you first get the app on the phone is that you'll get a token on the desktop, and it will basically attach that token for the phone. So then that's how it authenticates. We're using that right now in our digital authentication for our document management app. But yeah, so it's basically the token set up as well. So it authenticates it that way. If you want more detailed, like how actually, like what type of encryption and stuff we're using, come by and talk to us for sure. But yeah, that was the other thing, is like we need the app, like any kind of mobile app, you got to make it really easy for the users to actually be able to get it and access to it. So they spent a lot of time on making sure that that was as seamless as possible. Because if it's too hard for them to load it, they won't. Nobody will use it, right? So it was a big feature for them when they were building it. Cool. All right.
Just some questions.
Sure.
You showed that you define the libraries and then define the collections, right? The collections for specific types, like locations in that case.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose it works compatible with Comala document management, right?
So yeah, one of the things, obviously, the first thing we want to do is build integration in with document management. So of course, the goal would be you do your page approvals, and when you publish, you approve the page, it pushes it to the library.
Okay.
So that's the plan.
So step ahead. So
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's an extension of kind of the publishing functionality, but it's kind of taking it one step further.
Okay. Supposedly it would use, or it will be usable in the future. Would it be possible to make kind of like a baseline snapshot of the handbook version? Because I'm creating with that collection a handbook version, right? And I would have the, let's say, the collection traceability. If I can't do that, I lose the traceability because maybe I collect different pages from different information structures in one collection, right?
Yeah. It makes sense. I see what you're saying. So like a template.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good idea. I think it would be worth letting it, because I mean, these are the kinds of things we started looking at early on.
Okay.
So but yeah, doing templates was another one that came up because we're like, we just want to have a way of creating like a pre-built library, basically like a pre-built library with the collection.
Yeah.
So then you don't have to build it from scratch. So that's actually one of the things that they've been looking at.
Okay.
So and actually I think that came up early on because we're like, I don't want to have to rebuild the library every time. It's the same, right? So like a template collection for handbooks or policies.
Will be one case.
Save you some time.
And the last question is the compatibility to macros. You already mentioned, but would it be possible, or is it compatible to all?
So the macros were kind of, we have to build them in specifically. So we're basically going to just continue building out the macros over time. So it's going to be probably based on like, well, which ones are we getting the most feedback on? Like, we really need this macro. Okay, then we'll build that one in next. Okay. So we started off with the ones we thought were the most common, Jira links, things like that. And then it's just going to be a matter of, okay, we have a list, like probably 10 or 15. Okay. And so one of the things that we're going to be talking with, so when we're running a beta, so we can get some of our customers using it, because I mean, we really need this macro. Okay, well, let's build that one in. So the idea is it's not like a static set, it's going to be an ongoing library.
Yeah, so. Very cool, thanks.
All right, awesome. Cool. Any questions about Canada or my funny accent? No? Okay. Awesome. All right, thanks everybody, appreciate it.
Thank you very much.